Okay. Thank you for joining us this evening for the September 20th, 2022 Monte Sereno Joint City Council and Site and Architectural Commission meeting. Before this meeting is called to order, I would like to point out a few house rules to assist council members, commissioners, staff, and members of the public to successfully participate in this meeting. Council members and commissioners, your microphone is live, so please keep your microphones on mute until you wish to speak. For tonight's meeting, we are using Zoom to host the joint special meeting. At the bottom of the Zoom client, there are two icons, chat and raise hand. Please use chat only to report technical issues such as being unable to hear a council member speaking. Please use raised hand to be recognized by the mayor and enabled to speak to the council. To comment under oral communication or on any agenda item, you're allowed 3 minutes to speak per agenda item. Emails limited to 350 words can also be submitted to the city clerk and it will be read into the record. This word limit is set to adhere to the typical 3-minute time allowance. Only attendees using the Zoom application can use the raise hand option to comment. Participants calling in from a telephone will only be able to listen and cannot provide feedback or public comment. Lastly, because we are not all in the same room, all votes at this meeting will be taken by roll call.
Great, thank you. And let's go ahead and take a roll call.
Okay, Councilmember Lawler.
Present.
Councilmember Luthold. Councilmember Turner. Councilmember Turner is here, but you're on mute. I see you, but you're on mute.
Here.
Mayor Pro Temp Mekachuk.
Present.
Mayor Elahi.
Present.
Commissioner Zeidler.
Present.
Commissioner Sharma. Commissioner Sharma, are you here? I see you. We can't hear you though. Commissioner Booker.
Present.
Commissioner Balasubramanian.
Present.
And Chair White.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, I guess we have the first and the only closed item is the update on the housing element from the housing element update ad hoc committee. We have a staff report.
Yes, thank you and good evening. I am Diana Perkins, I'm the city's planner. And as part of the housing element update that is currently underway, Monte Sereno is required to plan for an additional 193 housing units in the city over the next 8 years. At the May 24th joint meeting between the City Council and the Site and Architectural Commission, various options for planning for the additional housing units were discussed, including encouraging more ADU construction, reconsidering the current SB 9 requirements, and the possibility of rezoning portions of the city to allow for higher density. The direction provided by the council members and commissioners at that meeting was to focus our efforts on increasing the number of ADUs created in order to meet the requirements for the additional housing units. The City Council and Site and Architectural Commission each formed ad hoc committees to develop a public outreach program and to solicit interest from property owners in creating an ADU on their property. The City Council also approved an incentive which provides a 50% discount on building plan check and permit fees for the creation of an ADU. In order to receive the fee reduction, a property owner is required to submit a written intention to construct an ADU and is also required to obtain the building permit by December 31st, 2029. The ad hoc committees developed a public outreach program where the city was divided into 5 areas and each area was assigned to a council member with one site and architectural commissioner assigned to work with each council member. The council members were responsible for getting the message out about the importance of creating ADUs and the permit fee reduction incentive. These efforts have resulted in 190 completed ADU intentions. That is updated from when the staff report was posted last Friday. Several intentions have come in since then. So currently, we need an additional 35 written intentions in order to reach the goal of 225. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to give this update on the outreach efforts, as well as providing an opportunity for the council members and commissioners to discuss the current status and give any direction about how to proceed with obtaining the remaining ADU intentions or any other alternative options that may be desired. So with that, I will turn it over to the ad hoc committee members for additional information and to start off the discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Councilor Little, if you would care to comment.
Actually, it looks like Mr. Mekachek has his hand up, and I think he has some information to present at the top of the meeting here.
Sounds good. Yeah, you guys have both done a fantastic job. So, Mayor Pro Tem Mekachek, please go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Perkins, could you please share the graph with the results to date? Because I think that tells a very positive story, and it shows the way we're going. If you could put that up on the screen, that would be great.
Yes. Did that work?
That's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I never know.
I think that this graph shows the trajectory that we're on and where we are as of a few minutes ago with 190. And you can see that the next line is at 200 and our goal is 225. So I think we're well on our way, and we just need to get to 225. Would you like to continue, Sean? This is just the graph that I wanted to show, have everyone see both the site and architectural commissioners, city council, and any members of the public that are watching, that are attending.
Thank you. Yes, the outreach obviously has been working and working well. I have shared with my fellow partner, Mr. Booker, my strategies for going door to door, providing information, working hard to get people on the spot to sign up. I've been doing that primarily by bringing my iPad with me, connected to my phone with a personal hotspot, and making sure that we kind of close the deal on the spot. And I think that led to a lot of the success in my area, and really some real density in terms of getting return on investment for my time, as I've walked probably 5 weeks now, door to door. Mr. Booker helped as well. And we've covered probably 85% of the houses that we've knocked on the doors in our area. We've had very good responses from people opening the doors. Only a few people unhappy to be talking with us or seeing us. But for me, wearing a Monte Sereno hat and a Monte Sereno shirt going door to door gave me a comfort level that I was there providing information from the city. And I think it gave people comfort to open the door to their Ring cameras and to actually speak with someone looking very official. So if anyone is still interested in going door to door, I think it's going to be absolutely critical in some of the areas where that hasn't occurred yet. And if we can talk about that more tonight, what's working, what isn't working. But I think wearing a Monte Sereno shirt, wearing a Monte Sereno hat, having the confidence that goes with that is very helpful. I spoke with Commissioner White to help him get started through the ad hoc committee. And he's gone out a few times now and is also, I think, and he can speak to this, but experiencing a lot of success, again, with the door-to-door, being very official and signing people up right on the spot. So we're here to share experiences about that. Another thing, Ms. Perkins, perhaps since we are in the open meeting now and it's legally allowable, perhaps you can forward the email message which included the text of my recent Nextdoor posting from last Saturday to everyone. And that'll be available to everybody if people didn't see it on Nextdoor. People may want to post their own similar messages that they're going to be getting out and going door to door, or that we can avoid going door to door if people email us, call us, or contact the city and get signed up. So I think that's been helpful. I've actually had several people reach out to me and sign up in response to that Nextdoor posting, some in my area, and I think some in other areas that help motivate them as well. So we can go ahead and share that to everybody by email during the meeting. And like I say, feel free to liberally take ideas from that. Obviously, be careful that everything we say is becoming part of the permanent record here. So we need to make sure that we're accurate. And also, at the end of my message, I put on there that this is me acting in a personal capacity, not an official city capacity in providing the information that I'm providing. So trying to make sure that we don't get the city in trouble for anything we do, but we get people moving on all of this. So that's really where things stand for me right now, and happy to hear from other people, hear from their experiences, answer questions. One other comment I did want to make, hopefully Ms. Perkins can help us with this as we get to the nearing the finish line, is it does seem that a few people who may not be qualified may have signed up. And so this is something that we as the city council may want to do we may want to extend a little beyond 225 if we need additional safety. And we may want to authorize a little more than that. Otherwise, we're going to need to go through and carefully screen and make sure that we do in fact have enough qualified people who've signed up. So those are some comments for now, and I'll have some further follow-up in a little while, probably.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else have any items to share? Anything to share? I know you've all worked hard and walked a lot on the streets out there, not as much as Councilor Luthold and Mayor Pro Tem Akachuk. I think,
Yeah,
but go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
first of all, I sent letters and have been fielding a number of phone calls and then working with people that I know in the city of Monte Sereno, kind of one-on-one. And I think that Commissioner Site and Architectural Chair White went door to door quite a bit. And I think that we have to applaud him and recognize him for doing that. And of course, also yourself and Councilmember Lawler. What I would put forth is that if we were to take that graph and do a postcard and mail it out to absolutely everyone on our mailing list one more time, I think that that would push us over the top with additional walking of the streets. And I spoke with Ms. Perkins about that. So I think that's an action item that would be relatively easy to do, and I would volunteer some time to do that. But I think this is working extremely well for us.
Yeah, I think it's working great. And I think there's now an incentive. You can tell people we're only taking 225. There's only 35 seats left. So sign up now. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay twice as much for the ADU permit. So this might be your last chance. And maybe Councilor Luthold, you can do another Nextdoor posting and saying, hey, these are going fast. This is it. This is your time now to sign up. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay twice as much the permit fees. Maybe they'll draw some people in to understand that this needs to be done.
Yeah, we did just have a note from the city attorney that we shouldn't email this information around, but perhaps Ms. Perkins can add that email from me to her to the formal record here, and people can then take a look at that as part of the notes from this meeting, and that way it'll be publicly available. So that we have a public record of that. I just want to make sure that everybody is able to access that information that I was posting. I know not everybody is active on Nextdoor and it doesn't always work. So we can add that information. And Mr. Rudin says we can probably add it to the website as well. I am certainly for following up with the push on Nextdoor, with giving people the sense of urgency here to get this wrapped up. I think we all feel the sense of urgency to make it happen. The other things that I wanted to check with Ms. Perkins on is with her and with EMC, what are our timelines? When are we going to need to submit our preliminary housing element? What's the latest date that we can get this in for the initial review? And my thinking about that is I think it's really absolutely critical, this is my own view, that we not submit our housing element for review until we have our full 225 in hand, not be saying, look at our chart, we're on a track to get 225. We'll have it real soon now, state, trust us on this. I think we want to have 225 confirmed letters of intention, maybe even a few backups beyond that in hand at the time we submit for the preliminary review. So what's the timeline look like? And am I right about that idea, Ms. Perkins?
So for the draft housing element, we were hoping to submit it yesterday, but it does look like it's going to be delayed a little bit. I would hope this week, but I would say more likely next week. And it does include a discussion, and I know EMC is currently working on expanding this, of what we're planning to do for the ADU intentions. So the site inventory in the draft is incomplete. But again, with an explanation of what we're working towards. The adopted, or the city council should ideally adopt a housing element in January of 2023. The push to get the draft housing element submitted, not necessarily with the complete sites inventory, is that the state can take up to 90 days to review it. And so we're already kind of given that time frame. If we get the draft submitted, like I said, hopefully next week, we're pushing, we may not get comments until the end of December, which then kind of gives a tight schedule to get the adopted housing element adopted in January.
So when we get those comments back, what happens if the comments come back and say, we don't like your nearly all ADU approach, do something different? At that point, can we submit the housing element in January the way we believe is correct and want it to be, even if the state's preliminary comments were, we don't like this? How does that work?
Yes, so I did actually hear this morning from Andy Flower at EMC that the city of Ross in the North Bay is sort of in a similar situation and similar effort that we're in, where they're really focusing strongly on ADUs. And so I have sent an email to connect with the staff over there, and hopefully we can share some information. But again, it would be up to the city council how you would want to proceed at that point. My personal thought would be that we should try to address their comments about, you know, if they have a concern, which they very well might, that you know, so many ADUs used to meet the RENA allocation. I think we should try to address that issue and likely resubmit the adopted housing element with the same sites inventory and just some additional data about why we chose this method. Given that the city is built out, essentially they are, you know, we have a lot of well, we have only single-family lots that are individually owned. Combining properties for rezoning is not the most practical option for the city. Again, given, lots are, as far as redevelopment is concerned, relatively small, and land values are so expensive that higher density might not be a practical option for the city either.
Yeah. One further question on the 190 number that we're talking about kind of as of today. Does that include the few SB9 units that you've received confirmations of and locked in, or are those separate and apart from the 190 we have at the moment?
So I understand from our consultants, I actually haven't received it directly myself, but through the website, I believe they said there was 5 SB9 interests, and this 190 units does not include that. So that will be just additional buffer that we would include.
Okay. And then since I've got the conversation going on this, one other thing that I wanted to provide a little bit of feedback on is several people who I talked to, a few people I talked to, were very, very interested in SB9. They had 1 acre lots, or give or take. They were very much candidates for SB9 projects. However, they really didn't understand, or they did understand, that we haven't liberalized the SB9 programs yet, but that it's very possible that the city is going to do that as we learn from other cities' experience, and the future kind of the council looks at what is appropriate and still fits with the character of Monte Sereno. So that's another thing I bring up, maybe either if we're struggling with the state comments on this as we get later in the year, this may be something else that we can address as well, because in our sites inventory, the moment that we liberalize the SB9, there are clearly going to be the number of projects. There will be a number of projects, and how many there are will depend on how much liberalization goes on. So I just wanted to put that out there. So that's something that we may have some urgency on, depending on the state's comments coming back. My own view is that with the ADUs, we're really hitting the goals for adding real inventory, which most cities are going to be struggling with. Our ADUs, we've got people expressing actual intent to build them. That's going to be real housing inventory that real people are going to live in. And that's going to, it's also going to add a lot of relatively low income or low middle income. And if we're overweighted on that, that certainly seems like no negative to be adding that, especially in our community where housing is so expensive. So I think those are going to be things to stress, things for Andy to include in the document when we submit it, to really push hard on that, to say, we're doing our job, we're confident in what we're doing, that it is generating housing and meeting the spirit of what the state wants to accomplish here. And nobody's messing around coming up with something that's not going to happen. A lot of cities are turning in. I'm just looking at Southern California. Huge numbers of cities are still in the non-compliant list, and they're a year out into this process now, and the state doesn't seem to be resolving the issues with their non-compliance. And here we are looking to submit a fully compliant plan that's actually going to get the housing built. So I think we really want to stress in our submission to the state. I mean, this is not just us doing the paperwork. This is us really actively coming above and beyond to do both the spirit and the real life housing production that the state wants.
I think those are all key points. We also at the annual picnic had the West Valley Community Services do a panel on this thing, and they're quite excited about these ADUs, as they will provide housing for lower income or middle income individuals. So hopefully we can get some letter of support from them also, because this is the key, really. Let's go to Mayor Pro Tem Ekchak, and then Commissioner Pallavi Sharma, and then Councilmember Turner.
Thank you. I have 3 questions for Ms. Perkins. My first question is, how many cities have submitted their draft housing element plans to the state?
I do not know specifically. So we're on a schedule with the Bay Area cities, which I believe there's about 109, 110 jurisdictions in the Bay Area. From sort of similar communities that we've been keeping an eye on, I would say just a rough estimate, it's probably about 50-50.
Half of the cities in the Bay Area have already submitted their housing element plans. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, the draft.
The draft, yes.
The draft.
Okay.
From the cities that I've been kind of paying attention to as comparables to Monte Sereno, I would say about half have submitted the draft.
Okay. When do you think the other half will submit their drafts?
Ideally, I would estimate that everybody would be submitting certainly before the end of the year. There's cities, I know Los Gatos has a lot of environmental review. We have a lot of community input. They have a housing advisory committee that they meet with. So there's a lot more details, I guess, and public meetings that are going along with their process, just because, again, the number of the RENA allocation that they have. So I do think there's a lot of cities that knowingly will not make the January 2023 deadline for adopting a housing element. And I think the same was true for the Southern California cities also, as evidenced by they're still working on it.
Okay. My third question, which I think will be my last question, is can we submit version 1 of our draft housing element for comments? And let's just play a scenario where we don't have our full 225 as of the day that we submit it, but we then go over the edge and we have our full 225. Can we submit version 2 of our draft housing element plan and say, don't look at version 1, so that we kind of meet our deadline to submit something for comment, but because circumstances change in a positive way, the uncertainty in version 1 is replaced by certainty of the 225 in version 2. Can you comment on that, please?
I would guess one of two things. Either the state would not accept a second draft until they've completed the review and provided comments on a first draft. That's my guess, would probably be the most likely. Alternatively, I would imagine if they were in the review process, perhaps they would then start the review clock over again. But I would imagine if they've begun to review the first submittal, they would want to complete that before starting a second review. But you can definitely submit 2 drafts. Submit a draft, receive comments, and submit a second draft before actually adopting a housing element.
Okay.
That's a possibility also.
So my follow-on is not necessarily a question, but more of a request. Could you, in the next little while, somehow communicate and ask that question to someone in the housing element, whatever, submission process, so that you can get a more definitive answer for us, please?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I'm done.
All right, so that's good. And I suspect if you rather do a complete version 2, if you just do a supplement and say this is just a supplement addressing how many intents we have, and it might be easier for them to look at that. In any case, Commissioner Sharma, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lahi. My question is to do with, so we the crux of our housing element update is going to be that, we have this intent to build 225 new additional dwelling units. Does the data from, and I know that some of it we can attribute to the incentive program that we've put in place, that there's going to be an acceleration in the number of ADUs that are going to be built over the next 8 years. But does the data from the past few years support what we're saying will happen in the future? And does that need to be part of the housing element update?
So the data of the number of units, the number of ADUs that have been permitted recently would support, and I'm going to say approximately because we issued quite a few units, I would say in the last several months. I would say roughly the data would support about 125 ADUs over the next 8 years, based on the most recent number of ADUs issued. And so the incentives and the outreach, we are arguing will increase the ADU production.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. And my second point was not a question. It was just a comment that I think when we do submit the update, I completely agree with Council Member Luthold that we should stress that not only does this meet the sort of the letter of the intent, but it's also, increasing affordable housing and, providing housing for people who maybe, come into work in the city and they can now choose to live here. So we're actually addressing it, at a much broader scale than just complying with the number of houses that need to be built. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Turner?
Yes, I actually have 3 questions. You see, am I on? Yes, I am. Okay, my first question is with respect to the SB9 units, Ms. Perkins, how many did you add per household? Is it 3 units?
So
Because you can't count the JADUs, right?
correct. So currently in what we're planning for the site's inventory, and as I recall, we have 5 people who submitted online that they were interested in an SB9 project.
Yeah.
We haven't included any additional, SB9 assumptions. We're not planning on including any additional assumptions for SB9, as we haven't received any applications for those projects, so we don't have any beyond the 5 interests that we've received. We don't have any other sort of evidence of SB9 projects likely to happen.
That's not really my question. Here's my question. If I am the homeowner and I say I want to opt for SB9, right? How many units are you going to count from my SB9 split?
So
just mine, is it 3 units?
So in terms of counting for our assumption,
What are you going to submit to HCD?
so I guess there's a couple different submittals to HCD. So what we're working on now is our plan to accommodate the additional 193 plus approximately 15% buffer. And at this point, we're not planning to include any SB9 units beyond those that a property owner has said, I am interested in, where they've specified the number of units. They're interested in 1 additional unit or 2 additional units. We would include that information as towards the plan of how to accommodate the RENA allocation.
Okay, so what is the possible largest number of units?
So SB9 on an existing lot would allow up to 4 total units. So the main house, the second unit allowed by SB9, an ADU, and a JADU.
But you can't count the JADU. So my thinking is that the maximum number of units would be 3. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Given that, one of the things that I would also like for us to consider is, instead of having our buffer at 15%, to actually go with a buffer of 10% and have HCD say that's not enough or that is enough. Some of the cities have actually given HCD only a 10% buffer, not a 15 or 20% buffer. So I would suggest that we actually do that. The third one is really, do you have a map of the districts for the homes with ADUs? And the reason I ask this is I have been to 60 homes, right? Most of them are in the Twin Creeks, Becky Lane area. And the people, the owners there, do not want ADUs. They have no intent of building ADUs. In fact, I only got probably about 5 or 6 out of the 60. So I can give to you the houses that I've called on and have said, no, we're not interested in building ADUs. And it's for a number of reasons. One is age. Some of them are saying that they're just not comfortable with making a commitment that the number of the discount is good, but it's to make that commitment, they have to be feeling more comfortable about it. So in light of that, if you could show us where these ADUs are located, so that we can actually, and also the ones that we've called on, we can go back and call on the ones that we have not. Especially for me, because mine is Twin Creeks and Villa Caballero, and those houses there, the reason they don't want ADUs there is because of the traffic. The traffic goes through them, and they're more concerned about the traffic. So if you could give me more data, I sure would appreciate it.
So yes, I will share my screen one more time, if nobody minds. We do have a Google map that is kept updated that has the blue marker is properties, to the best of our ability, that we have determined already have an ADU. And then the green marker are the properties that have completed an ADU intention. So this is the data that we're tracking. In terms of the canvassing that each individual council member or commissioner is doing, and the response that they've received, other than a completed intention form, we haven't been receiving that data. So each person has been sort of managing their areas and which houses to go back to.
Okay, can you send this to the council? This map?
Yes, I think based on what the city attorney said earlier, we can post this link on the agenda along with the email from Councilmember Leopold.
Okay, and also I think one of the things we should look at is the number of units at 10% and the number of units at 15%. And then we can take a look at that perhaps in our next meeting as to whether we want to present the 10% buffer or not.
Yes, we can do that.
I'm just curious, Councilmember Turner, why do you want to limit it to 10% rather than 15%? If you can share your thoughts.
Because here's what's going to happen. If we list out the homes at 15%, for the next RENA cycle, we cannot use those homes again.
Got it. Thank you.
So I wanted to jump in on something Ms. Turner asked about the map. I wanted to, and Ms. Turner, you raised the issue of privacy before, and a lot of people wanting a certain amount of privacy over putting out their personal information.
Yeah.
The map at the level we're looking at it on the screen, I think is fine. A screenshot of something like that to give generalized information is fine. But the map that is kind of helping people track what's going on a house by house basis should not be shared for all the privacy concerns that you raised before, Ms. Turner.
Yeah, I agree. And I just want to see, where the clumps are, where we need
Right,
to
so-
follow.
Yeah, thanks. So my suggestion would be that we do a screen capture of the resolution that we just saw so that it doesn't give away private information for people at this point.
Yeah, and I just want to make one last point. The city of Los Altos, Cupertino, Palo Alto, and Saratoga have submitted their housing element to HCD. However, they have not heard back from them at all. So that's just for your information.
Okay. Anything else, Councilmember Turner?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Makacha?
Yeah, I want to address what Councilmember Turner said a few minutes ago regarding moving from 15% to 10%. I thought we've already crossed that bridge, and I am not sure if it was a resolution or a direction or what it was, but we've already been there. We talked about that. We received counsel on it, and to reopen that can of worms, I don't think does anything. And 5% of 190 is what, 8? So that doesn't move the needle one way or another. And I think, as Ms. Perkins said earlier, or sorry, not Ms. Perkins, I think it was Councilmember Luthold, when he said not all of these are valid. So we need to have a cushion, and I think that's prudent. And to revisit whether it should be 10% or 15%, I think is a waste of time. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Turner, did you want to respond to that? You have your hands up.
Oh, I guess you're entitled to your opinion, but I do think that looking at it, 8 number of homes in 8 years from now could be considerable. So who knows?
All right, subject to something to consider, and I guess we'll probably have some SB9 homes also. And in fact, when you submit the HCD, do look at how many SB9 commitments there are that we can show as part of our plan. Okay, and also I think we should not ignore the point that Councilor Luthold brought up, which is we do need to look at SB9 again to see what may need to be done in case we need that as a backup if our ADU plan gets shot. That might help us out. All right. Anyone else have any comments or further discussions on this subject? Hopefully there's more discussion on it. You're all here. And there are some areas, personally, what I would request is probably an update on some of the streets that we have. I think I'll drop by and get an update on how many of the houses in our area between Councilor Sharma and my area have been checked out, and how many have agreed to and how many have declined. So that would be helpful. And I know it's a lot of work that still needs to be done, but 30, I think is not a big formidable update. Hopefully we can finish it all up this weekend. All right. Any other comments? Attorney Rudin, I know you're probably in Norway. I don't know if you're supposed to be able to talk to us or not. If you want to say anything, please go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm back from Norway. I'm just very, very jet lagged. Yeah, no, I don't have anything further. I think the city planner and the ad hoc committees have clearly been doing a whole lot of work on this. And, if you have any legal questions, please reach out. Thanks.
Okay. I know there was one email that came in. I don't know if you want to discuss that or not, from an organization that had some concern about whether our ADU plan was proper or not. Is this the time to discuss that, or should we do that some other time? And I don't know if Attorney Rudin had a chance to look at that.
Was this the correspondence from YIMBY Law?
Yeah.
I don't have any comments on that correspondence, and I'll just leave it at that.
We could probably discuss it in closed session if it becomes necessary. Councilor Luthold, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Just a couple quick things. One, since we are here discussing the housing element, I did want to mention as well the letter from the MB folks. And if Ms. Perkins and the city attorney and Mr. Flowers can address that in any way in terms of getting a step ahead of it in our submittal, just to make sure that we've made our points clearly and what we're saying is not being twisted or misinterpreted, or if it is twisted or misinterpreted, let's just get a step ahead of that. The state's got a hard job and a lot of these to review. And if we can make it more clear, I think that'll be helpful. I think there were lots and lots of misstatements there. And again, I think they don't get it. And what's ridiculous and what I'd like to say in a big flashing headline in our housing element and in response to them, we have 225 people who said, yes, in my backyard, literally, yes, in my backyard. I'm building an ADU. It's going to be addressing the housing issue. And I mean, yeah, sure, there are some people who might rent these to relatives or allow relatives to live in them rent free. That's still providing housing. But I mean, we've literally got people saying, yes, in my backyard. And we've got an agency that says, yes, in my backyard in their title, giving us a hard time over this. After they jumped in on a mansion on Greenwood. This is ridiculous. It's offensive. And I want to get ahead of that and point out the hypocrisy of what they're doing. It's really, really wrong. So they don't know what they're doing and they don't understand what we're doing and that we're the good guys here. So yes, in our backyards, we're saying it, where people are committing to it. That's critical. So I want to really stress that. The other thing, Mayor Elahi, you mentioned getting out there in your territory and with Ms. Sharma and really trying to hit the door to door. I really recommend, if you haven't been doing it already, bring the computer along, have it hooked into the city website, close the deal on the spot where possible. That's critical. And also the other thing I wanted to share, I think Mr. White and I both found especially, there are pockets of people who have either talked to each other or paid attention to this issue, who are really interested in this, who get it. I hit 5 houses out of 6 on Vineland because they understood when we were talking about Vineland, and they'd all been talking to each other and they were happy to see me. I left feeling I'd done them a service and just feeling really good and energized and motivated about this. And if you look again at the general picture on the map, I've had some really successful cul-de-sacs, not just my own, but some other areas where the houses are really set up for this. And people are interested in it and want to build. I know Ms. Turner struggled with the people who didn't want to do it. And I found some pockets of that as well. And it's really hard to go to another house when you've just been told no 3, 4, 5 times in a row. So take advantage of what's working. And when you find households and streets that seem to be good targets, spend your time on them. And I think you'll get real return on investment as we come in with those last 35 people.
Excellent. Councilor Lutol, you are a motivator for us all. Thank you. Councilor Turner. You're on mute.
I have a question that I forgot to ask, and this is for Ms. Perkins. How are you going to calculate the affordability levels of these 225 units when you submit them to HCD?
We will be following the methodology that has been established by ABAG for the Bay Area region and has been accepted by HCD. And I know the Southern California cities have done a similar survey. Their numbers might be a little different based on their survey results. But ABAG has surveyed the Bay Area region and has determined that we can count for ADUs 30% at very low income, 30% at low income, 30% at moderate, and 10% at above moderate. With a standardized formula that all cities in the Bay Area can use to allocate the affordability of ADUs, both in the plan for your housing element as well as annually as we go along and report the actual number of units.
So are we methodically then going to go after the very bottom first and then work our way up to high income and then start with the very, very low income?
Well, it will be what the units, assuming we get the full 225.
Mhm.
Sorry, I've got my calculator here. We will have approximately 67.5 in the very low, and moderate income categories each. And then 25.5 in the above moderate.
Okay. Thank you.
And that will meet our affordability levels. That is part of the RENA also.
Thank you. Commissioner White, please.
All right. Yeah, I'm just curious, what's the plan? Are we going to go with another mailing or not? I have yet another one that came to my door today. There were many people who said they wanted to think about it, and I've gotten 3 of those back that have been dropped on my porch. And I leave my cell phone with everybody so they can get a hold of me and I can pick it up from them. I would encourage another mailing to go out. I don't know how everybody's been tracking their data. I make a note as to whether or not I left a door hanger, whether I spoke to somebody and gave materials, whether I got a definite no, which I'm not going to bother those folks. And of course, if we got a definite yes, I've submitted that form. But it's the first 2 that I'm most concerned about, and that is the door hangers and people that were left with information. And people that were left with information are the very ones that are returning these to my porch. And I'd like to follow up with those folks. And I think it would be helpful if there was a mailing in the interim that they received so that they know that this is real and it's not some guy that borrowed somebody's City of Monte Sereno shirt and is sweating through it at my front door to legitimize the whole thing. And I think it puts added pressure on and address some of the questions about the deadline. You know, the urgency to this seemed to ring for a lot of people, and it allowed them to make decisions on their front porch that they otherwise probably would have considered over a few days, if not a few weeks. So I would encourage another mailing. I know it's expensive and maybe too expensive. And if that's the case, I understand that. But if we do have the money for it, I would encourage it.
I think it's an excellent suggestion, and we probably don't need to mail to everybody, I guess. Depending on whether it's going to cost more to try to sort it out or just go ahead and do a blanket mailing. But it's a good suggestion. Mayor Pro Tem Makachuk.
Thank you. Commissioner White, that's just music to my ears. You've got 3 more that add to our 190. So we're at 193 now. Is that correct?
I gave some to the city manager today, 2 of them, and I just got a 3rd this evening. So maybe those are included in that number. So I don't want to mess up with the numbers.
Whatever. That's just very positive. And I think that the work that you've done door to door is just amazing, and I commend you for that. Ms. Perkins, if you need help with a mailer, I can work on that. I'll volunteer my time. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can also add, we can certainly jump on getting another postcard out as quickly as possible. The last, so we did a postcard last year, just a general one about the housing element, and then a couple of months ago for this ADU effort. And if I recall correctly, the printing and the mailing was around $700. So it's not a huge expense.
Yeah, that's worth it. And I would suggest you do put a line in there. There's only 30 slots left, or how many more we need. So people should sign up right away.
And I'd add to that, and I think it's probably already being considered here, but add the urgency, add the number available, remind people that this is the discount. Go ahead and include both the At Home in Monte Sereno link on it, and the QR code. I had a couple of people who jumped on the QR code. The very high-tech people who live in the community actually said, "Oh, there's a QR code here. Let me scan that." It impressed me because that's not my go-to. I go to the web address. So having both of those right there in front of people would be good. I was just going to comment for everybody. In terms of mailing, it's actually cheaper to print and mail to the post office's entire community than it is to try to put together a targeted mailing.
Sure.
So it's probably easier to do a postcard with have the post office distribute to everybody version of it, which I think is what Ms. Perkins is describing already. So we don't need to be super targeted. Yes, it's going to hit a lot of people we've already hit, but that's fine. And again, it does give legitimacy to it when people are seeing this same color scheme from the city over and over again. They're seeing the same web addresses, and it's getting out there. Mayor Pro Tem Mekachuk pointed it out. You got to hit them several times to close often, and it's been amazing the receptiveness that we've had with closing people on the spot right away. One comment I wanted to make from Ms. Perkins about the housing element and what we're submitting. I was just thinking about this, and I wanted to make sure that our housing element, when we put in our draft, that it really says these things. Number one, we have whatever number we have, 8 or 10 or 12 empty lots that are in our site inventory that can be full above market, probably with an ADU. Those are site inventory. So we've already got 8 or 10 or however many units have been identified in the site inventory for that. We've got now the 5 SB9 signups, which I think we should call out and speak to, and they should have their own section and say, this is 5 SB9s. The intentions have been signed with 9 units or 10 units or whatever. And we have 190 or however many on the day we turn this in. Keep that slot open, put it in bold print and fill it in. I mean, if we have 190, 195 on the day you turn this in, we're well over our 193 when we're turning in our draft housing element. So I've been stressing I want my 225 when we turn this in, or we do a supplement, because we're really overdoing the ADU side of things because we think we can and we think that's good. But it sounds like we're turning in as of today, fully compliant housing element. Doesn't have the full 10% extra, but it may be approaching that by the time the first draft gets put in. And then we can say, these are coming in at a rate. You can put in Brian's chart and say, we fully expect that we'll submit our supplement and we'll be way over producing by the time they get around to pulling this out of the file and reviewing our draft.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you have the 190 and the SB9 give you that extra percentage guardman that we're looking for. So we may already be there, but let's finish it up since we're almost there.
I guess I just wanted to express, the same way I'm a cheerleader for getting these things done. I'm a cheerleader for turning in a housing element that's excited that we have complied and that is not just a document cut and pasted by, EMC's done good work, but it's 60 or 80 or 90 pages of really boring government document. Get up there in the executive summary on page 1 and say, we're excited to present an unusual housing element. We did it and we're producing housing for you guys now. Read into the details, but this is an unusual housing element and more fun to read than a lot of them. Let them know that. Give them some excitement.
All right, we're all excited here. This is moving along. Anybody else have any other comments? I think we still have 30 minutes we can talk before we go to our regular session, but we don't have to. So we can.
And Mayor, if we're done with questions to staff, I would suggest opening this for public comment before the members here give direction.
Thank you for that reminder. Does any council member have any other comments you want to make, or should I go ahead to the public? All right, doesn't look like it. So does any member of the public have any comments? I think I see a hand up from Ishan Prasad. If you would like to say something, please go ahead, Ishan. And Ishan, first of all, we appreciate everything you've done and we'll appreciate that more in our open session, but please go ahead for now.
Thank you, Mayor Elahi. So for this particular moment, what I wanted to say was regarding Ms. Turner's comment about creating or sharing the map. The map that Ms. Perkins just shared, that is, we have been internally circulating it, and obviously she was very careful to make sure that she stayed zoomed out so that we weren't zooming in on particular addresses. I can, however, create kind of a heat map, which would, instead of specific points, have just a gradient of colors, and I can create one for signatures we've achieved and one for ADU permits that we've issued. So that way we can protect the privacy interest and also give the data that Ms. Turner is looking for. That's all.
Thanks. All right, any other comments from any members of the public? Not, we come back to council. Is there any final comments, directions to staff? If not, I guess, thank you all for showing up today and for all your comments, and we will adjourn this session until next time and come back at 7 o'clock for our council session. Thank you all.
Thank you for
everybody.
the great work.